So you're really not supporting local ecology by doing this at all. The best thing to do is to just plant a bunch of plants, a lot of flowering native plants, not just in spring, but throughout the year. And so then you'll have a lot of resources for all the different kinds of pollinators, bees and butterflies, and all the things people love. And you get to garden and go outside. But it is an act of doing something as opposed to doing nothing. I'm Harland Patch. I'm a research professor in entomology at Penn State. Mow May was a campaign started in 2019 by a British charity called Plant Life, and they were trying to just help bees in Great Britain, which actually have been having a pretty hard time. So that's how it began, and it spread through mostly Twitter to the United States, where the story is quite different than what happens in Great Britain. In the situation here in the US is that we actually have a very different climate and very different habitats and very different ecology than what happens in the UK. So in the UK, a lot of those plants that grow on your lawn, dandelions and white clover, are all native plants and they really do help the bees. But here in the US, we have very different seasons. So May is not the month for us. It's usually, for most parts of the United States, it's about a month later. And the plants that grow in your lawn are not native here, and they're not pretty nutritious for bees and other kinds of pollinators. Our spring is really about trees and shrubs, and then some understory blooming plants, not really those things that grow in lawns. So what we should do is plant more native plants, trees and shrubs. They're pretty easy to manage once you get them going after the first few years. And then if you can, things like bluebells and columbine and those sort of native plants would be best for bees. But just things that flower a lot and are mostly native, if conserving and helping native bees is your interest. So the unintended consequences are you actually encourage a lot of weeds to grow in your lawn. Weeds that get in other people's lawns. Some things like non-native thistles can become problems for land managers. And you can have a lot of not goodwill. There'll be a lot of no goodwill if you have a lot of dandelions. It can really upset your neighbors. In some municipalities, you can be fined and those kind of things. So it doesn't help the bees, those plants, because they're not particularly nutritious for our native bees. And they also can become a nuisance. And they just spread around, and you'll have to clean them up eventually anyway. And people will probably end up using herbicides to do that in your neighborhood. Lots of parts of the United States, if you don't mow and you keep your lawn long, it will encourage things like ticks, because they like those kind of habitats and they want to get in those sort of taller grasses, especially if you live sort of on the outskirts of cities, on the edges of suburbs. That can become a problem, especially if you have a place with a lot of deer and a lot of animals running around.
What's going on right now?
It is World Honeybee Day, so they have a